Is a peace deal in Iran finally on the horizon? And will the fighting in Gaza finally stop? Given the history of both, probably not. Plus, tariffs are still terrible, Haitians are still deportable, and our old friend Trae Crowder joins us to break it all down while hopefully not having a breakdown. That's today on the Foreign Report. Welcome back to the Foreign Report, your weekly geopolitics show that gives you all the gory details with hopefully some laughs along the way. I'm Travis Irvine, filling in once again for our esteemed FPZ foreign policy zaddy, Seena Ghaznavi. He's still sick. The Mossad has really done a number on this man, and by the Mossad I mean probably his kids got him really sick. But either way, we will carry on in his honor. Please send all the best energy, vibes, comments his way to make sure he feels better. But we are joined once again by an esteemed guest, a returning guest who knows how to make the news that is terrible bearable. You know him from Weekly Skews. You know him from the well-read comedy podcast and tour, as well as putting on airs and all his appearances on TV and all over the internet. Our old friend, the one and only Trae Crowder. Come on in. Woo-hoo! Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah.
I do all the music for the show as well.
You're nailing it. Yeah. You know that I like to come out to that siren, that classic siren.
That's what
Kendrick Lamar used that in a concert in 2009. I've been using it at my shows ever since. So.
Every time I'm on the road with you, I'm like, I have the DJ pump it up a little bit.
Siren. Yeah.
Right.
You think somebody gets like royalties for that siren?
Oh, the bam, 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 bam?
Yeah.
Man, whoever invented that.
Like somebody developed that, right?
I hope they're getting their due out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Who profits off sound effects?
I don't know, but somebody's
got to.
You got to pay
beep,
for like
beep,
everything, don't you?
Like those, because it's every like rap song has like a beep beep. In it. Yeah.
Who's the guy that came up with skirt? You know,
I mean, we got to get these people on the show. Tell us how to do it. Well, welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you, dog.
So much has happened since the last time you were on. It also feels like nothing has happened.
That's true. I've been thinking lately, it's weird. I don't know, it's just getting like desensitized to craziness, I guess, or whatever, but it's felt like slow to me lately.
Yeah.
Because, I talk about it on the internet and stuff, and like for weeks, there'll be times where I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to, obviously like things have happened, but it's not like, when Trump 2 first started, it was just a fever pitch of just you couldn't keep up with like the crazy
fire
shit.
hose.
And it's like again, there's still like stuff does happen, but it's like slowed down a little bit, and I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, well,
is that just a thing? It's just hot out,
Yeah, it's just hot. There's so many other things to think about. I mean, it's a good perspective to put on it because it was like it started insane, and now it's not as insane,
right?
And that's how it feels. So slowing down,
they can get back there,
Oh, any day. I mean,
the drop of a hat.
We're going to cover some stuff today that is going to be bonkers from around the world. But I did want to just start with some updates since the last time you were here. The last time you were here, we talked high game about a fella running in the Maine Senate race. And I just want to kind of do maybe like a U.S. Senate rundown. Let's talk a little domestic before we get into the foreign policy, whatnot. But Graham Platner, I mean, you were sitting there, I was sitting there, Seena was here. Seena donated to Graham Platner. So we've already covered this on our show, but I want to get your thoughts on it. What happened?
Tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, I remember that we talked about Platner, but I don't remember what all I said or what stage of the Platner saga that conversation took place in.
He was still in the clear at that time.
Right. But they knew about the tattoo and stuff like that, right?
I think it was the tattoo and maybe a few things about
Reddit
his wife.
Posts. Like Reddit posts. I think that was like pre-sexting.
Yes.
It was like Reddit post and the tattoo.
Yes.
And at the time, I was very much like, making excuses for that. And it's like,
we've all been on Reddit.
Yeah, right.
Using our anonymous platforms.
He was in Croatia in 2007, and, it's a skull. It's not a swastika. It's like,
right.
Yeah, I could see that you could not know that.
Yes.
Just wanted it to work out. But I don't remember if I brought this up or not, but I was thinking and telling people a lot when we would talk about him during that time. It's like, it's just so, because in so many ways I did agree that this guy's like, exactly the type of thing that like the left needs, you
Yeah,
know? And I was
yeah.
like, it's just, and also that's like a hugely consequential race.
Yes.
In Maine. And I was like, and it's just so like typical of the world that we live in that it's like, oh, by the way, that guy, he's got like a Nazi tattoo and said a bunch of crazy. It's just always, it always has to be something.
Right.
Always. And then, you know, a lot of red flags, and it finally, you know, too many to be ignored eventually. And it's like, you can't really act that shocked by it, you know, at the end of the day. It's one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of people, myself definitely included, were like clearly in a little bit of denial about that guy.
I mean,
you know, we were just like, you know, it'll be all right.
right. Well, but you know, from what I remember of our conversation, the main thing we were pumped about is how he was running the campaign side, the policy side.
Yeah, that's
blaming things on billionaires.
That's the reason that so many people were making so many excuses for him, is because the politics part of it was so like, oh my God, this is exactly it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I still think that should be kind of the blueprint. It's like you need a guy like that who has that kind of message and is effective at delivering it, just without all the Nazi rapist stuff. If we could swing that,
you just cut that out.
You could just get that. And I know that that's a hell of a, you know, those things aside.
Yeah.
But like those things aside, he was doing pretty good.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then Seena made the point, if this were a Republican primary, if he was running against Susan Collins, he'd be soaring to victory at this point.
He'd still be in.
Get more Nazi tattoos.
Right. I knew I liked this guy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. 100%.
So anyway, but that all kind of happened. And there is a race, by the way, happening. Today's Tuesday, August 4th. This episode would drop later in the week. But as of now, there's a fellow named Abdul El-Sayed also running with the Bernie Sanders endorsement. That was the thing. The only reason I knew about Graham Platner is because Bernie Sanders had endorsed him. So hopefully Bernie has a better track record in Michigan. Abdul El-Sayed, he's a former health commissioner, I believe, in the Detroit area, the county, but certainly a more of a progressive leaning race in that he's running against an establishment Democrat, a woman who's a congresswoman who's
loves Israel.
So yeah, that's what we were talking about. Me and the producers was like, she's endorsed by AIPAC.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is kind of where the foreign element of world policy jumps into our domestic elections. Because I mean, you look at what AIPAC did in Kentucky. They spent $30 million to get Thomas Massey to lose his primary, and now they're jumping in the Michigan Senate race. Yeah, what are you seeing? Because I saw commercials. I was in Toronto briefly. Shout out to the Toronto listeners. But we would get all the Detroit commercials. And so I saw Bernie Sanders in a commercial for El-Sayed. And then they had some negative ads playing against his opponent, just showing like literally her speeches verbatim, where she's like super pro Israel. So
yeah, she's the one. Isn't she the one that said like she gave that like impassioned speech? She was like, if I, you know, as long as I serve, I will do everything in my power to protect the interest of Israel.
Yes.
And
yeah, it's like a verbatim speech.
Yeah, right. And it's like, you think she's going to say, you know, the people of Michigan or my constituents or whatever, but then it's Israel for some reason. It's like, you're running to be like a U.S. senator or whatever.
Yeah, and she's Haley Stevens. Yes,
Haley Stevens.
She's a congresswoman. Yeah,
and it's just like, I don't know. It's so crazy because I'm like, who is in favor of this now? But you have to remember how generally uninformed so many people are. So just having the right amount of resources and backing behind you, and also I don't know what the messaging is against El-Sayed.
He's too radical, probably.
I'm sure it is that, and also, you know, I mean, that's a real Muslim-y name he's got there, which is fine with me.
I gotta say, at the end of the Bernie ad, they do the whole thing, and then at the end, it's literally Bernie saying, just don't pay attention to his name. And then like they laugh and then cut the camera. It's like, but it's like a bit. It's like a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, you know, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like with your average, like day-to-day American voter, like like Democrat, whatever, like working class, like union type Democrats are left in a place like Michigan. Like, I'm sorry, you know, some of them are going to be weird about a dude named Abdul El-Sayed. I don't like none of that shit. It's just true. I mean, like after Kamala in 2024, like there are elements, there are voting blocks you need in the Democratic Party that like have some less than progressive attitudes about a number of things, and you have to figure out how to sort of cope with that. But like the financial or economic aspects of the progressive wing of the party and all that, I feel like it's speaking to pretty much everybody right now. Well, not everybody, but it's like it's the only thing that's like invigorating anyone, in my opinion.
Yeah,
is like the left wing populism and stuff, and the billionaires and all that shit.
Right, and if he gets the union support, I mean, Bernie's always got union support. I think the big thing, like to your point, what the centrists are afraid of is that he is too lefty, and he is too. Now he's not running as a DSA. He's running as like he's campaigning. He's like, I am a Democrat, and that's it. But you think about that block of voters in Michigan specifically who said they weren't going to vote for Kamala based on what was happening in Gaza, and it's like, well, you're going to need them. So if Haley Stevens can't get that voting block, I think the Republican is Mike Rogers, who's like a crazy. He was like pro NSA. This guy is like,
well, that's what I'm saying.
That's like
the other end of the spectrum. It's still just on the left as far as the voting blocks go. Because I was talking about the ones that that just weren't going to vote for Kamala because she's a woman, or or like the ones that would be like. Again, the name thing, Abdul El-Sayed. I don't know about that.
Right.
What is this? After 9/11 wasn't that long ago. Whatever, like just lunatics.
Right. Where was he on 9/11?
Yeah, right. Yeah, like people like that. But then down on the other end, like past the whatever, even more like leftward from that, you have the other voting block of like the college kids who weren't going to vote for Kamala over Israel or whatever, which they always annoyed me too, because it was like, what do you think the alternative is going to be to that?
We're seeing it. Right, we're living it now. Like, we're going to get through all of it.
What universe is that going to be? It's always blown my mind. I do not understand how people, I guess not everyone's just as like practical, because like, there's things that I don't like that are less than ideal, but it don't change the way that they are.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So I just don't understand how people can't see that with some of these things. It's like, I know it kind of sucks, but there's two options and the other one sucks more. I don't know what else to tell you.
Right. Well, speaking of AIPAC jumping in and meddling in our elections, we did lose another senator who was very much backed by AIPAC, Lindsey Graham. There's obviously there's a lot to say about Lindsey Graham. We've pretty much already made all the jokes. Ed was on last week, so we've covered it. But there's all this documentary footage. There's a British filmmaker shooting a documentary about Lindsey Graham like over the last like 4 years, and it is loaded with footage with him on the phone with Bibi Netanyahu talking about how to sell the war in Iran to Trump,
right?
Which they did successfully. And then now there's new footage that just came out this week about Lindsey Graham informing Bibi Netanyahu, almost like the lawyer character, Robert Duvall's character in The Godfather, about like how to get away from the International Criminal Court, the ICC. Like, how do you get away with being a war criminal? And Lindsey Graham is like giving Bibi advice on this whole thing, to skirt around it, and like telling him he's got to talk to Speaker Johnson it's just bonkers. Again, talk about like AIPAC supporting certain Senate candidates or congressional candidates, but now it's becoming very apparent, to your point again about Haley Stevens. Lindsey Graham seemed to be a better senator for Israel than he was for South Carolina.
Yeah, by a lot. What did he, in the past like 10 years at least, or whatever, like what did he ever accomplish for South Carolina? Like you said, he got that like war started.
He did.
Like
he
finally
got
the war in Iran going, which
and
he like cared about, but like, what'd he do for?
Have you seen the footage where he's like, "How we've been working on this for so long"? Like he's
it was like
so happy.
No, it was like a pet project for him, which I don't. Do you know what the reasoning is? Like,
he loves war. He loves it, man.
Yeah,
that was the joke we made. He loves two things in this world, and one of them's war. The other one, he doesn't get to do that anymore. Yeah.
Well, it depends. I don't know. A lot of dick sucking in hell, Travis.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, somebody commented on one of our videos like he's getting pegged in hell. I'm like, that's heaven to him.
Yeah,
all right.
Don't
mix it up for him.
That's the age-old argument.
Right. Well, lastly,
how much fun do you want to have?
Yeah. And speaking of hell, lastly, I again, we're recording this on August 4th. Today was the day. Did you see everyone was posting online their obituaries to Mitch McConnell? They're like, I'm so sad he's going to be dead tomorrow. Because there's this whole thing in Kentucky where if Mitch McConnell died before
that's right.
midnight,
today's the day.
Today's the day. And
but keep going though. Today's the day, the deadline. It has something to do with the election there or something.
Yeah, it's basically it's a difference in Kentucky law, and our listeners can let us know. It's kind of confusing, but basically, if Mitch McConnell, who's been gone, disappeared, not in the public eye except a couple AI photos for like 50 days now, I think since like mid-June. And the idea is that if he was legally dead before August 4th, either the governor, who's a Democrat, Andy Bashir,
Right, gets to appoint
someone, or they have a special
election.
election. Yes. And the worry is that a special election, anybody, you could have Thomas Massey jump in and he could win. But now it's after August 4th, and I think it's something along the lines of the state party gets to choose the successor to go into the next election or whatever. So it's literally that type of deal of, does the establishment, who, Mitch McConnell is obviously a part of, or was a part of, does the establishment get to name his replacement, or do they dare to leave it to the will of the voters or a Democrat governor? And that's kind of the deal. And I mean, my algorithm, I was talking to our producer before the show, I literally had a video in my algorithm saying that a body has been delivered to a hospital in Louisville. And I have no idea if this thing is real or not. And that's where I'm just like,
the whole thing with that has been weird.
There was a bunch of police presence at a hospital in Louisville last night. People are posting about it online, but we have no official report yet.
Wasn't it like, okay, and it is confusing.
It's very confusing.
Nebulous on a lot of it too.
And it could be irrelevant in like 2 days.
If he had died and if Bashir just straight up appointed somebody, that would have that'd have been like an interim thing, right? For I don't remember how long. They still would have like called an election to replace that. That'd be like an acting senator or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it could be Thomas Massey theoretically or whatever. But also, like, if it was just given up to vote, the people in Kentucky that like reelected Mitch McConnell over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm saying the Republicans were the one who were like down a vote in the Senate while he was just like, whatever, just stuck in purgatory or whatnot. Like,
right.
and then even if they announced that he was dead and Bashir could do either of those things, I don't know that would have been good for the Democrats necessarily. Do you know what I'm saying? The whole thing is weird to me because I don't really understand the incentives of a lot of it, outside of just the people that like don't want to lose their senator job, because the guy's dead. But obviously that's gonna have to end at some point. But yeah, I don't know. That whole situation to me is super weird.
It's confusing too because I'm not clear on, because he already announced he wasn't going to run again. I mean, he's 84 years old, so he's not going to run again.
Right.
But I don't know when his term would have been up. Like,
right.
This year is not a Senate election year, I don't believe. Unless I'm missing it. So it's just like,
well, no, but
someone serves out the rest of his
Platner's
term.
running for the Senate and isn't.
But it's different for every state.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because they do 6 years and it's on like a lot, it's not on the same increments or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like some Senate seats are up this
some of them
November,
yes.
and some of them are not. I don't know. Is Mitch's?
Is Mitch? That's what I'm wondering. I think he was supposed to be in there. I think he got reelected in like 2022, 2024. I'm trying to find it right now.
Right.
But either way, like you said, it doesn't remove any of the confusion around it. I mean, if he's dead, which some people are saying he is, someone's got to take his place. And it's also just weird to have a system. We can move on from this, but to just have a system where the governor of the state doesn't know where the senator is. Isn't that like, even in Ohio, the Republicans and Democrats, like they work together, like Sherrod Brown's a Democrat and he would get along with a Republican governor back when he was in office. So it's like,
didn't Bashir say a couple weeks ago that he's had no
communicado? There's nothing.
Yeah. But before, at some point he said that he had heard or been told that somehow that McConnell was dead, because I remember that being a headline, and then that got walked back or something.
Yeah.
And then other people were saying, like, that's what I mean about how it's confusing, because I saw some people being like, I've always liked Andy Bashir, but if he had any guts, right, he would just say, well, Mitch McConnell's dead. Mitch McConnell's dead, so we're doing this, the appointment or whatever. And then make them prove otherwise. You know what I mean? Because if he is dead, what are they going to do?
Right.
If he does that, if he's actually, and if he's not actually dead, but he's like vegetative, well, then what? How do you prove? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But then I saw other people saying like, yeah, but it doesn't, again, for reasons that I can't recall right now, but they were like, it's more complicated than that. It wouldn't necessarily even be to his advantage to do that anyway, talking about Bashir in that case. So the whole thing is I don't know. You'd think I would know all this, Travis, because I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a Kentucky colonel. Did you know that?
Like, it is in our backyard, at least. I'm from Ohio. You're from Tennessee, and there's a beautiful state right in between those two.
That's right. No, I grew up on the Kentucky state line.
That's right.
Tennessee.
That's
side
right.
Of the Kentucky
so
state line.
You know all about it.
But yeah, no, I got a little hat, a little coin thing says Kentucky Colonel.
Oh, you're actually a colonel.
Yeah.
You and Colonel Sanders.
Me and Colonel Sanders.
You got a bucket of chicken.
Yeah. Now
what food are you famous for?
Nothing yet. Give it time.
Yeah,
We've been working on this like
the fancy
mac and
fixins
cheese,
videos.
but with meatball.
Oh, buddy, sign me up.
Anyway, it's like a thing it's like an honorary system. I don't know if they did it because of Colonel Sanders, because he's a very famous like Kentucky colonel, but they have a program there that like Kentucky colonels. It's obviously not military,
right?
It's like a civilian honor. It's not. I have it. It's not that big of a deal,
right?
It can't be, but yeah,
sounds pretty sweet though.
But yeah, I got a little.
We don't have that in Ohio.
I got a little badge and shit. I don't know if anybody anywhere else has it. If your state has it, you should nominate me for that too.
Yes, yeah. Let us know, and we'll invent a famous food
maybe
for you.
Maryland crabber.
Maybe, yeah.
One of those.
Meatball mac and cheese. I mean, I would give you an award for that. Well, either way, we got more confusing stuff to get to. So within days, I assume we will know the answers in Michigan and Kentucky and also all this Lindsey Graham footage. It's just going to keep on dropping. Like eventually, the guy's going to finish his documentary. It's going to blow everyone's mind.
So Lindsey Graham has had a British documentarian embedded with him for years.
Well, he's had other men embedded with him, but not this guy. Apparently, he was just
right.
He wasn't filming the fun stuff. He was just filming the scandal. Well, I guess.
But
it's
what
all
I'm
pretty
saying
scandalous.
is it one of those things where Lindsey Graham thought a documentary was being made about how awesome he is? Do you know
Sometimes
what I mean?
that's the case.
I know, right?
I did that to Ed Larson. I was like, I'm going to show everyone how awesome you are, and then it's just him crying the whole time.
Right.
Well, either way, Lindsey got his wish, and it's so bizarre that he's no longer with us, and now we're all living with the repercussions. I want to jump into it because, talk about confusing news out of Kentucky. This is confusing news out of Iran. Because apparently this past weekend we had another peace deal put in place. But guess what?
Let me get it's fallen through.
Oh, wow.
Or it was never there to begin.
Right. Sorry. Are you, what do you got a crystal ball over there?
I do not. I saw that Trump said like, "Oh, we're in talks with them or whatever." And then an Iranian representative was like, we're not talking to them.
That's always how it goes. Yeah.
And it's like
Secretary of Treasury goes down and is like, yeah, it's going real well. And then Iran's like, no, it's not. Who are you?
Yeah.
That's kind of, it happened again this weekend. But this is like, it really got escalated here. Apparently, the U.S. media was really starting to put out a lot of info. It's like we were about to have the big one. In that the U.S. and Israel militaries were going to turn the energy grid and oil infrastructure in Iran into a fireworks display over the weekend. The State Department even issued the classic "Get Out Now" to Americans in the entire region because it's not just Iran anymore. Now it's spreading to Oman and Kuwait, and all these different places are getting hit.
Dude, if you're an American in that region right now, I don't know what
why the hell are you there? Get out.
What have you missed?
If you're listening to our show, get out of there.
It's also like them saying like issuing that "Get Out Now." The implied latter part of that is like "Get out now" because if you are there and shit goes down, we ain't doing shit to help you.
We covered that.
Like you gotta you're on your own.
There's a woman who put a video of herself calling the State Department about like they have like a number if you're an American you call, and then they literally just like
they're bound to close that down pretty soon.
Yeah, we can't help you.
Yeah,
Doge
like,
cut
somebody
it.
needs to disconnect that phone.
Right.
We get all these calls from these whiny Americans who want the government to help them or something. Because I remember right after the first strikes in Iran, it's all kicked off back in what was it, February, March, something like that.
Yeah, March. Yeah, end of February. Yeah,
I was watching CNN and there was this retired American general who was in Dubai for something, and they were interviewing him on CNN. And I feel like this is the first time this came up, but he went into this whole thing about how there's all these expats there, and he was saying that all like the Brits and the Australians and all them were in active communication with their governments who had like plans for like, here's how we're going to get you out of there. Here's what we're going to do. And he was like, and our government is telling us to go ourselves, basically.
That's always
like
nice.
You can't even get a hold of them, and if you do, they're like, we don't have a plan. He's like, people don't know what to do, and so it's like that's what I mean. I don't know why. If you ain't gotten out by now, You must have a real sweet deal going over
Yeah,
there.
right.
Yeah,
You
you're
must-
making some good arms trading money or
something like that. Oh, somebody's making money off
Or
this.
just like, sex influencer stuff or whatever. That's a
Right.
big thing over there too, isn't it?
I did not know. I don't know, but
Or there's like, I don't know. They got tigers and sport and like luxury cars and like
somebody's doing really well over there.
Yeah, like influencers go over there to get peed on, I think.
Man,
am I wrong?
We're in the wrong bit, but you're asking the wrong guy. But now I want in on this business. Yeah, I'll go to Kuwait to get
peed on.
Peed
on? I think you might pay a pretty
I'm making
penny.
some money here.
Yeah.
Either way, peed on aside.
Yeah.
Trump's peeing on the whole region anyway because this whole thing got canceled as it does on Truth Social. And it was because he said that some of the Middle Eastern neighbors there slid into the DMs and they're like, please do not bomb the shit out of Iran. And one of the main influencers, talking about influencers in the region, Saudi Arabia. This is one of those things where it's like, that's a country where we've had a long time relationship. Thanks to the Bush family and their royal family. This all goes back to like the 1980s. I mean, this is like Saudi Arabia can get on the phone and be like, hey, could you not? And they've apparently been doing that. But then it's also like, but then as we were talking about with Israel, they're the ones who are just like, boop, boop, boop. And then they fire off a couple of rockets and stuff. And then, it's basically like Saudi Arabia and Israel need to have normalization relations, which ironically is something Lindsey Graham was supposedly working on before he died.
I thought that those two were like tenuously kind of okay with each other because they're both cool with us.
Yeah.
Like Saudi Arabia was one of the more, I don't know how pro-Israel they were, but in terms of like in that region, comparatively speaking, they were part of that.
Their interests are the same.
Yeah, right.
And that they want stabilization, but Israel wants, both of them are pretty much anti-Iran from what I understand.
Right.
So maybe that's the only real area where they're aligned, but it's like still, if Saudi Arabia is trying to, stabilize the region and then Israel just keeps like firing off shots, then it's like, well, who's in charge here?
It seems like Israel.
That's what I'm thinking.
Or they at least have the ability to f everything up whenever they want to, and there's going to be no repercussions for it.
Yes.
Because each type of deal you make or whatever, they're always like, okay, this deal is contingent upon
Lebanon
Israel not doing any more shit. And they're like, yeah, they'll be cool. We got it under control. It's fine. And then like before they get out the door, they're like, sir, we've learned that Israel's done some more shit just now. Like, Israel's over there like,
it was like, gotcha, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, the you gonna do?
Yeah, Seena,
not send them more money and bombs and stuff. That'd be crazy.
We
not
were
gonna do that.
Comparing it to a bar situation, as we often do here on this show, where Israel's like your drunk friend who keeps starting fights at the bar. When you're like, I got him under control. Sorry, we'll get him out of here.
Sorry about that.
You look around, he's punching another bartender. So, but this is the whole thing. Just to kind of close out this weird deal, non-deal again, but this is the madman theory of diplomacy. Are you familiar with this madman theory? This was a Nixon Kissinger type thing where Kissinger would go over to the communist countries and say, Nixon's crazy. He's a madman.
Right.
Don't mess with us because you never know what's going to happen. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. Trump's like, I'm going to bomb the, same as he did on Israel or on Easter, right? Where he was just like, we're going to bomb it to oblivion. And he puts out that warning and then he quickly says, my warning worked and they're willing to talk. And then supposedly there's talking, but there's multiple parties and we don't know who's saying what, but it doesn't end. It never ends anything. It just kind of keeps on going down.
The madman, right. It's like you genuinely don't know what a madman's going to do.
Exactly.
So you have to take their threats somewhat seriously because they're just crazy enough to do it or whatever.
Which is bonkers because Iran, I think we've seen since, like you're saying, since the end of February when this started, they're not taking it seriously. Like, why would they? I mean, at this point, they run the strait. Now they're messing with the other strait of Bab el-Mandeb over on the Red Sea because they got their Houthis over there who they also fund. And so it's like they're kind of they're in control. They have the upper hand. They have the cards. And every time Trump puts out a wish list, as he did with this peace deal, they're just like, yeah, that's your wish list is real nice.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Give him the old Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
That don't work for me, brother.
Good,
what do we even stand to gain at this point?
I don't know. Cheap gas again? I mean,
like we kind of had.
Yeah, well,
eventually. That's what I mean. It's like, isn't the best case scenario for us at this point
get back to
just-
where we were.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, but for
break
real though.
even.
But for real though, isn't it?
No, you're
I
right.
mean, outside of like,
Start a
other than
war.
if their idea was to literally like conquer Iran and take it or something, which is clearly not going to happen,
Right.
And of course shouldn't. But then it's like, so what did sweet old recently passed, God rest his soul, Lindsey Graham want to happen at the end of this?
You know, I mean, the big people behind this whole push are your Pete Hegseths, your Bibi Netanyahus, your Mike Huckabees. For them, it's a holy war. For them, this is like an 80-year war to reshape the entire region. And it's not just Iran, but it's all Iran's proxies, you know, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, which we're going to get to here in a second. I mean, they want all the troublemakers out, but in doing so, as Ed also highlighted, there's no good guys in war. By trying to get out the bad guys, you become a bad guy. I mean, that's essentially what happened with the U.S. when we invaded Iraq.
Yes.
You know, it's like, are we the baddies type deal? So, yeah, I don't know what the end game is, except maybe just endless war. I mean, Lindsey Graham was also backed by a lot of warmongers and defense contractors.
Right. Well, the holy war thing, dude, like some of these people, like they want, it's like another like crusade, right?
Yeah.
Like they want like
80-year war,
Christians
baby.
to
Quick 1,000-year war.
Like they want Islam to not
exist,
right?
Something like, or you know,
they want to take back the Holy Land and make it all Christian and shit.
I mean,
like,
that's,
there's people that really do want this.
I mean, well, and that actually is a good way to tie and segue into Gaza, what's been happening there too, because now there's another part of this. As we know, the Gaza conflict has been happening since 2023. And this one, now they're trying to move a new diplomatic framework into that area and that conflict as well. But similarly, it's another one of those things that you look at and it's like, yeah, sounds nice. Good luck with that, right? So this is what we're dealing with here. This is a part of the broader 20-point peace plan that was designed by Trump officials, including the very, very experienced Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. You know these fellas?
Yeah.
Hotel guys, real estate fellas. They've got interest in the region and that they want to.
Steve Witkoff, you know, they need to send is that Steve. He used to work for Jerry Springer, had his own daytime show. What's his name?
I was thinking about that guy.
Steve Sick. What's his name?
Sickoff?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sickoff?
You said Steve Witkoff, and I thought it's Steve Silco or some shit like
Wilkos.
that. There you go.
I was literally thinking about him the other week because
Yeah.
Jerry Springer's from Ohio.
Yeah,
and
right.
Jerry Springer launched a bunch of people's careers in daytime TV.
Right.
R.I.P.
Steve
I wish that guy
Wilkos.
was still around.
Give him a shot at it.
All right, let's get him over there.
because
because that was his job
It
on
was
Jerry
his-
Springer.
that's what I'm
he would
saying.
run up and grab the people.
Yeah, do it like
You're
Jerry
sleeping with my
Springer style.
mama.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yeah, he was great. Well, get him over there. Honestly, it'd be better off than whatever this
right.
is.
Yeah.
This is the newly minted Board of Peace and International Stabilization Force for Gaza, which sounds like some faction from a sci-fi movie. But the idea, the trade-off here is that they phase out the disarmament of Hamas. So Hamas voluntarily surrenders its weapons and its tunnels and its power in the Gaza region, which ironically, and that sounds made up, but Hamas has already said they're down with that part. And then the other part that I am more skeptical about is the phased out withdrawal of Israel military forces, the IDF, from Gaza. So the idea is that Hamas surrenders its weapons, Israel gets out, and then what they're going to move forward is an international peace force made up of other countries such as Turkey, even Indonesia. I mean, then they're going to have like international buffer zones. I mean, this is like a whole thing. And that's why you read it and you're like, well, sounds nice. I don't know if this is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, as you said up top in like the cold open, it's like all we have is what generations worth of history to the contrary.
Yeah.
it's like did you remember the Sandler movie You Don't Mess with the Zohan, or Nobody Messes with the Zohan?
Oh man, well that's the last good Adam Sandler movie I saw was Big Daddy. That was one of my where I actually could watch it over and over again and quote it, but I stopped after that.
Well, there's a joke in that where it's, Adam Sandler's like an elite like IDF special forces.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
he's a hairdresser.
I
got to revisit this
hold
thing.
on, I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen it since it came out, but yeah, he's like a Israeli SEAL guy.
Yeah.
But it's a comedy. It's a Sandler movie. It's a stupid comedy.
Well, what's funnier than it is a Mossad guy
I know,
there,
yeah,
a
right,
hairdresser.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
I was talking about the Hebrew Hammer with my buddy this weekend. You remember that one? It was a Comedy Central. He was like a superhero. And it was
Comedy Central.
Yeah, it was a Comedy Central made-for-TV movie with Adam Goldberg.
No,
Oh, dude.
I don't remember the Hebrew Hammer.
But this is what we need, more Jewish superheroes. Right?
Was he IDF, the Hebrew Hammer?
I would
was
assume
just,
he
like,
got
from
trained by
Queens?
somebody. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but anyway, in the Zohan movie, Sandler's mom, his Israeli mom, she's talking to him about whatever, some mission he's got to come up or something, all this fight. And she's like, we've been fighting for over 1,000 years.
Right.
It can't go on much longer.
Who's playing the mom in this?
I
Are
don't
you playing
remember.
the mom?
No, yes.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah. But she said, it can't go on much longer.
Right.
And it's like, I always thought that was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty funny, 'cause it's like,
The joke is
obviously it's going to go on much, much longer. It's never going to not go on.
Well,
but like that sort of naive optimism of, we about got this licked. It's like, that's what you made me think of it talking about this plan.
Well,
I feel like, there's some pretty deep-seated sort of beefs they got over there that I don't know if the Trump administration is up to mitigating with their plan. I don't care how many points their plan has, but
it's like you said, it's only been going on 1,000 years. Can't go on much longer.
Yeah.
So we'll put a pin on it for right now. We will keep our eye on it, though. I mean, we have to. That's what we do on this show. So thank you for putting all that in perspective in that region. We'll move on to some other stuff, some lighter stuff in the next block, but we are here on the Foreign Report. Trae Crowder still with us. Lindsey Graham no longer with us, but we're living with his mistakes, and we'll be right back with more. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. We're here with the one and only Trae Crowder. Thanks so much for being with us. By the way, I want to do some quick T-shirt talk here to kick off B-Block. I am wearing one of your first merch albums. It still fits me from 2016.
That's impressive on your part, bro.
I can't believe it's still squeezed into this
I have
thing.
had probably 5 different body types in that 10 years easily. I'm working on a 6th right now.
Okay, cool.
I'm
excited for the next version.
You've been holding it together.
Well, let's get to some tariff talk. This stuff is so hard to understand, but
all these months later, and I still don't really get any of it.
And that's what's such a bummer is that tariffs also are just so important, but with all the war and whatnot, all the tariff news is kind of falling to the wayside.
Even without war stuff, in my opinion, you can tell me if you disagree, but as somebody who talks about politics on the internet some, and also just looks into it, I feel like, I'm sure there's other things, but I feel like tariffs and gerrymandering, right, are both two things that, like, they are important, but something about them just makes people's eyes glaze over or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just
like something about them. People just, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it. They don't. So having said all that, let's do our tariff segment.
Yeah, I'm just like, my eyes are glazing over trying to read this. But I think the important thing here, and this is why, again, we've been dealing the economic hard strife times that we are in started with tariffs in 2025.
Right.
I mean, so
that was the first big thing.
And this is
and Doge.
Yes, and that's a whole nother thing that's apparently killed hundreds of thousands of people all over the world.
Right.
But tariffs, I mean, this is another thing where Trump came out swinging, like we're gonna slap tariffs on China, and then apparently once again, like everything else this guy does, the big game, the big talk, it didn't work. And so now Washington and Beijing are basically cutting a deal. It's called an economic truce on these tariffs. Do you remember Trump was like, we're going to slap 100% tariffs, 200%. But, he kept throwing out numbers on Truth Social, whatever. Yep. Well, now the diplomatic cooler heads in the room have officially committed to capping the tariffs on Chinese goods at 20%. And the reason that's important is that, again, Trump yelled big game about getting all these other Chinese imports being tariffed at higher rates. They're currently at 12.5%. And even that, by the way, drives up prices for the average American consumer.
Yeah. Is that include like computer chips and shit like that?
That's what I was going to get to. Okay. Yeah. It's the main thing is your consumer electronics components, your lithium batteries, your circuit boards, your smartphones, your laptops,
all that,
electric motors, power generators, solar cells, wind turbines. I mean, I guess in the US we're not really about all that, but the thing is,
but the rest of that stuff, yeah, no, like
it's turned the birds gay. Right?
I got a Steam Deck right, for my sons have a Steam Deck, and I went
Right.
to looked at getting one for my wife, and
It's like crazy expensive now.
months later, and it's like it's like 250% higher than what it was. It's like more than doubled. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is China's fault. No, I'm kidding. I knew I was like, this is definitely those tariffs or something. There's something is going on.
100%. It is, because, and it's the same with cars, it's the same with everything, that all these materials are in. And the whole idea, again, is to hurt China. And it's just another thing. It's hurt the American consumer. China's not paying the tariffs.
That's been the whole thing from the very beginning.
From
it's
the
like
very beginning.
Well, like they're not. We have
You
to pay
are paying the tariffs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Your
Yes,
sons
that
are paying
Steam
the
Deck.
tariffs. Yeah.
If I buy it, I'm paying the tariff on that. China didn't pay shit.
They aren't, and they
Steam
won't.
didn't. The company didn't pay shit. Really, they pass it through to me.
To the consumer, yes. And it's like everyone seems to understand that except Donald Trump. And so now, even this deal, it's like, okay, it won't go over 20%. China seems to get a victory, and Trump still gets to say, I'm slapping tariffs on China. But it's, this isn't really an economic truce. It's just heavily regulated corporate bullshit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are the industries that are really hit. So we did it. We broke it down. We figured out how tariffs actually impact your sons and your wife in particular, and that's why it's important. It's just, and again, it's another thing that Trump said he was going to do. And then it didn't happen, and he screwed up, and now everyone's paying the price for it.
Well, on that front, and going back to the Iran thing, what about the oil reserves or whatever? Because I keep hearing people say it's like we're getting close to.
Oh, the end of the reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Global reserves are
what?
all time. Yeah. Hey, fair question, sir.
Yeah, I know.
And I do not have an answer. And if
that's
Seena were in
like
this chair,
really bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Especially since we de-invested, as they just pointed out, all the solar cells, wind turbine parts. Guess what? Guess who's on top of that right now? Really, really doing a great job with it. China. Mm-hmm. They're building out their infrastructure. They're preparing for the worst.
See, that's the thing, too, is they love to make that argument about AI and shit like that, where we have to do it.
Yeah.
We don't have a choice because China's doing it, and we can't it's like they play the game with nuclear weapons, and you know what I mean? Or like the space race, they treat it like that, where it's like, well, China's doing it, so we have no choice. We have to do it.
Yeah.
We have to keep pace with them. But when it comes to green energy or shit
trains,
like that China's doing, we're like, yeah, well, we didn't mean we didn't mean any of that
Good luck with
libtard
that,
shit.
China.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And they're just crushing it with that over there.
Well, they'll be laughing the last laugh when those oil reserves finally get down to the bottom. This one actually hits home for me with you being here, because it literally is in my backyard of Ohio. This is about the Haitian deportations since the last time you've been on. First of all, I want
in Springfield?
Yep. I want to give everyone a little bit of history. Trae and I were watching in your living room with your lovely family. Everyone was playing with their Steam Decks or whatever. Is that what it's called? Did I get that name right? All right.
Uh-huh.
We're watching I think it was the only presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, right? And Trump starts talking about in Springfield, it's terrible. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. He does that thing. And I remember your sons start cracking up at this guy.
Right.
And then, all of us are just like, what? And the whole world was like, what? And he was talking about these Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. And then literally a week later, you and I were on the road in Ohio, and we stopped in Springfield just to take a peek, go support a nice Haitian restaurant. And that's kind of how this whole thing started. And Trump ran on the idea of we're going to kick out all these Haitians who are eating everyone's cats and dogs. And now we're there. 2 years later, and we are there. The temporary protected status has been ended by the Department of Homeland Security. We've covered it on the show before, so our listeners more or less have an idea about it, but I want to get your thoughts about it, because the Supreme Court it went to the Supreme Court. There's obviously some Haitian immigrants and some civil rights groups who are like, hey, you can't just end temporary protected. There's a system, right? There is a law from 1990 of how you actually do end a TPS protection for a group of people from, we got 17 countries right now that all have TPS protections. 350,000 Haitians in this country under TPS. And that's a result of the earthquake in 2010 and then the assassination of their president in 2021, 2022, and now the gangs run the country. So these Haitians rightfully sued. The Trump administration said, hey, you can't do that. And the Supreme Court was like, yeah, the Trump administration can. And so now we are living with this very real thing where I believe it's 15,000 Haitians in Springfield, Ohio. Like I said, 350,000 around the country. They're all going to get kicked out any day now. But it's like, that's the thing. People are now bracing for these ICE raids, the ones that happened in Minnesota. Like, this is all going to start happening again. But it seems like everything's held up till November. There's like one more. There's like all these different court cases that are happening. And it's like, well, there's one more court case that needs to happen before ICE can finally start making moves.
Is it? It's court cases legitimately? Because you said November, and I was like, oh, really? No shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like,
then you got the election.
Exactly. Yeah, because like people don't like that shit.
I know.
You know what I mean? I think at a certain point they realize it's like, this does not play that. I remember I remember even hearing that like Renee Good, I think, was like when Trump actually.
Isn't that crazy? That was in January. And where I just like, and Alex Preddy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, right. A government murdered people in the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Executed him. I know.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if it was Good or Preddy, but I remember hearing that like Trump, who had already sounded off on it so many times about how they got in the ICE officers' way and all this shit or whatever. But then he saw the like actual footage and was like, oh, damn, that's pretty bad. You can't do that. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't even.
Yeah.
But like what I'm saying is like they finally realized, I feel like that like people don't like to see stormtroopers cracking heads, in the streets.
Sure.
Regardless, pretty much. So when you're like, oh, it's not, they're going to hold off on that until November, I was like, well, that checks out because they don't want to hurt their electoral chances. But if it just happens to be a judicial coincidence, then
well, the Department of Justice, now run by Todd Blanche, obviously, they proposed a briefing schedule to continue in one of the District of Columbia trials, and that brief would be due November 6th. So that is like the only thing. But even then, it's like I was saying, this is in my backyard in Ohio. Like ICE is already like supposedly making moves. And even our governor, Mike DeWine, who I've made fun of plenty at your shows when we do shows in Ohio, he's like a normal Republican. It's like, don't kick out all these Haitians. Like,
I remember when all that happened, I saw like interviews with people. We went there and you talked to people.
Yep. We talked to people at the hot dog. It was like a
mustard festival, wasn't it?
I think it was a mustard festival, and they had a wiener dog race, which was very funny, happening right on the tails of they're eating the dogs.
Yeah, right.
It's like, woo.
Yeah, but the people there were like, even the ones who I feel like you could tell were probably conservative or whatever, were still like
protective of their city.
Exactly. They didn't like all that
being in the spotlight.
They also just didn't like. They were like, no, none of that shit. They didn't like the sort of chaotic, unstable attention of that, because they were like, no, it's fine. Yeah. They were like, no, none of that crazy shit has been happening here.
Right. Yeah.
Everything is fine. And I saw like interviews with like employers, factory managers, and stuff like that, who were like, these Haitians are the best workers I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, and that's what
they were like, please don't take the Haitians away.
Yeah, that's what like, Mike DeWine's a Republican. He's been saying that. The mayor of Springfield's a Republican. He's been saying that. The county commissioners, everyone's Republican in Springfield, and they're all like, no, we like having our Haitians here. They start businesses, they pay taxes, they work jobs we need. And so it's just a shame. One thing I want to highlight before we wrap things up is the Senate, the House did pass a bipartisan bill that was going to extend TPS. Because here's the thing. Even though the Trump administration's making new rules within the executive branch about what Homeland Security can do and not do with TPS countries, the law is on the books, is written by Congress, and Congress can act. So the House did pass a bipartisan thing to extend TPS, or add more ways to protect these TPS immigrants in the country. And then the Senate tried to follow suit. And this thing's so aggravating. Maryland Senator Democrat Chris Van Hollen, he pointed out the obvious, is like, we can change the law. We are in charge. And it got blocked by a Missouri Republican named Eric Schmidt. And man, you want to know what this dude said? You want to know what he said on the floor of the Senate? He said, there is nothing compassionate about flooding the labor market with more foreign workers while Americans struggle for a decent wage. I about flipped. I was working out this morning when I read that, and I about threw my dumbbells out of my hands. Because this Republican from Missouri, compassionate. First of all, there are compassionate conservatives. Mike DeWine, we were just talking about him. Some of you, the Christian thing to do would be to welcome the other, I believe. And then lastly, he's saying, why are we flooding the labor market with more foreign workers when Americans struggle for a decent wage? You could raise the wage.
Yeah, right. We've been begging you to raise the wages.
$7?
Anytime that comes up, you're like, you guys are all like, oh, burger flippers want $15 an hour, huh? It's always something with these. But yeah.
My head turned into the skull in your shirt. I'm dead. when I read that. It's just like, this is what we're dealing with.
Shameless, bro.
Yes.
Utterly shameless.
Well, speaking of shameless, we got one more segment left. We got to talk about our boy, everyone's favorite hillbilly, from the northern part of just north of Kentucky. So let's get to that. We'll get to the JD Vance Corner with Trae Crowder. We'll wrap things up from here. It's Shameless Week here on the Foreman Report. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Foreman Report. We're wrapping things up here with Trae Crowder. Thanks so much for coming on, Trae.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered quite a bit, and we got one more guy to get to. Everyone's favorite, the JD Vance Corner. Here's what's happened is a couple weeks ago, we had Negin Farsad on, great comedian, friends with Seena. She's great on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR. And we had the 3-hour JD Vance Joe Rogan interview. And we played some clips from that. And if you pay attention to MAGA world, everyone's pissed about it. Everyone's throwing JD under the bus. And I believe me, my algorithm, my precious algorithm, my phone, my laptops, all my devices are set to receive JD Vance news when it happens. And the man has disappeared.
Yeah.
Post a 3-hour interview that apparently ticked off everyone.
Which was part of a book tour, right?
Yeah, because he's got a new book about how he became a Catholic.
Man.
Yeah.
Who?
Go off, King.
What kind of light reading is that? Who's reading that on a plane or whatever?
I want to listen to the audiobook. Who reads the audiobook on this? Is it JD? Did he
probably
take time out of his busy schedule?
Actually, I take that back because it's like sometimes hard to fall asleep on planes.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if JD does read the book he wrote about his Catholic journey or whatever, that might be a good...
It's a surefire way to knock you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everyone's pissed about it. You know, Tim Dillon's a comedian who's now, I don't even know if he's a MAGA influencer or what. He's just an agitator, I guess. But he's pissed at JD. Dave Smith is another comedian who used to do shows at the same Mexican restaurant where we all started at, Creek in the Cave.
So many of these comics...
He's pissed about it. Everyone's like, JD went there to... I mean, he was asked about Epstein, and he was like, we screwed that up.
We messed the comms up,
Iran,
but that's all I can say.
Asked about Israel. I mean, and Joe Rogan's like not even like a tough interviewer, but he's just asking him... These are like softball hard questions. You know, it's like, how did you screw up Epstein? How did we get involved with this war? What do you mean Israel's calling all the shots? And JD just had no answers in 3 hours.
Yep.
And MAGAverse is absolutely ticked about it. And now, again, this is week 2. I talked about this with Ed Larson last week, and I'm talking about it with you. And the reason I'm still talking about this Rogan interview is because JD he's not, I don't know where he is.
To be fair on that front, I mean, the vice president, I mean, think about it, for most of our lives, dude, vice president just... God only knows what the hell the vice president was doing.
I mean, Dick Cheney was president. Yeah. I know that part.
Well, yeah, but he was, different in that way.
He sure was.
Like a lot of times
he was. I mean,
they kind of just float around. I mean, was it Biden who made the joke on a hot mic about how he's vice president? He ain't got shit to do.
Man, I hope.
I can't remember if it was Biden or who it was, but either way,
historically, that's what the VP doesn't do anything. That's why Calvin Coolidge was so pissed to become president after William Harding died, because he was like, "Yo, I was promised." To do nothing.
Right.
And then he had to be president and he hated it. And he just made Herbert Hoover do everything.
Right. Well, so I'm saying, but JD clearly, he was trying to be the next guy and everything. He has book come out. And he's trying to like position himself and all that. So for him to be like radio silent is definitely weird. I mean, he's been, I guess he's been cowed a little bit. Peter Thiel's put him in his place or something. Sent him to the corner, let it cool off for a while or something.
Something's happened.
Because you're right, that did not go over well. And all these like comics, man, it's been driving me crazy. Some of whom I know. I know. I used to do
shows with Tim Dillon and Dave Smith.
And it's like, they like helped Trump get elected, had JD on their podcast, all this stuff, whatever.
Andrew Schultz,
and almost all of them now
where they
are like, well, a lot. I mean, I guess to their credit, a lot of the, not Rogan, but a lot of the other ones now are like, they're like, kind of feel like maybe that was, they frame it as like we were hoodwinked and lied to. These guys were full of shit. It's like, what do you mean hoodwinked?
Yeah.
Like, how did you not? I just don't know how anyone didn't know.
Yeah.
So these guys who like, I think are smart. I think Tim Dillon is smart. I think Dave Smith is a smart guy, whatever. And it's like, I just don't know what they expected, but I'm glad that they at least,
Having a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, because not everybody does. A ton of people don't. A ton of people never. Again, Rogan hasn't like at all, I feel like.
Yeah.
So at least Dylan and some of those other guys are like changing course now that they, have, I guess, seen the error of their ways. So that's something. And thanks to JD for showing that to them.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, yeah. Yeah, because it was unmasked, I think. When you go on Rogan and can't come up with any answers for 3 hours, it was just kind of like, and we played the clips from it 2 weeks ago, and it's just like, those aren't answers. It's like, you bungled the Epstein file release. It's like, you didn't bungle it, you covered it up, and it feels like everyone's finally realizing it. I always think of, do you remember the Homer Simpson thing from The Simpsons when he's like, he gives his wallet to the wallet inspector, and then the guy walks away, and he's like, and then it shows him standing there. He's like, wait a minute, that wasn't the wallet inspector. That's how I feel about all this. Well, Trae, buddy, it's been great to have you. Thank you for coming on. You got any, we got any dates coming up you want to promote? We'll be in Ohio, but that's not till like November now.
Yeah, but I got a little bit of time off the next few weeks. But at the end of August, I'll be in Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, and then upstate New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Eugene, Oregon, Austin, Texas, a bunch of other down there in Roganville, and a bunch of other places after that.
You going to stop in? You going to do Rogan?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to have me. All of which you can find at TraeCrowder.com, TRAE Crowder.com.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you as always for coming in. Great to catch up.
Yeah, buddy.
We finally do get to hang out where we're not doing each other's podcasts.
Yep.
We're going to a baseball game next week.
Can't wait.
I need to check out of news.
See my plucky upstart Dodgers, see if they can pull it together, those underdogs.
I'm so excited.
That
Just
we
go to a
love
baseball
so
game,
much.
turn off my brain for a little bit. But we thank everyone for joining us. Please subscribe to the newsletter, foreignreportshow.com, and of course comment on everything. I read the comments, Seena will not, but send him your positive vibes, wishes. Sounds like he's on the mend. He'll be back again next week, so please send us anything at the Foreign Report, lpn@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.